What's up, guys? Welcome to the Fantasy Addiction Network. Today we're going to be breaking down the Week 2 matchup between the Dallas Renegades and the LA Wildcats, looking at all of the fantasy football start sits and giving you guys a game preview of how we think this game is going to go down. If you guys are looking for XFL fantasy and news content posted daily, click that like and subscribe button and be caught up on everything that we're posting. Anyway, not going to waste any more time. Let's get started right now. Alright guys, so as I said, we are looking at the Renegades and Wildcats this week. This was looking to be a very interesting game with both of these teams hopefully getting their starting quarterbacks back. It's looking like that's going to be the case for one team, but not the other, so we'll continue to monitor how things are going. But overall, we'll do our analysis based on what we're hearing and what the potential could be. So right now, this game is actually favored for the away team, the Renegades, to win. They have a spread of 4, and the over-under for this game is 48.5, so that gives us an implied point total of about 26 to 22. Again, over-unders have dipped down across the board a little bit this week after how many games hit the under last week, and this game would definitely be different based on who is the starting quarterback for both of these teams. Now, looking at the Renegades first, we did get the announcement that Landry Jones is in fact playing this week. Thank God. What that means is you basically have to throw out everything that you learned from last week. We don't know how this team is actually going to function with Landry Jones there, so we're pretty much back to square one with what we are expecting from this team, which I still think that they're going to be one of the better teams in this league. That was part of the reason why my power rankings earlier this week, I didn't drop them very far. They did drop a little bit, but not into the bottom tier. I think Landry Jones will be one of the top fantasy quarterbacks on this week and should be started in most formats. Now, the running back situation is going to be very interesting for us to decipher. Last week definitely muddied the water a good bit. Lance Dunbar looked really explosive, even though he wasn't listed on the depth chart, and Cameron Artis-Payne didn't get much volume at all. However, both looked really good when they did touch the ball, and as did Marquise Young. So, it's very hard to grade how this team is going to look with Landry Jones there, but overall I think having him there is going to be a boost to the run game as a whole, considering how well both Lance Dunbar and Cameron Artis-Payne looked when they were able to touch the ball and the drive was actually being sustained. I like both of them this week. The scoring potential is going to be much greater for Dallas this week with Landry Jones there and playing against the Wildcats defense that we saw give up a ton of points, 37 points to the Roughnecks last week. So overall, I'd be happy with starting either of those players this week. Marquise Young, maybe if you're desperate or in a super deep league, but I'd probably try to wait and see who ends up being the running back 2 here. But right now, we're sort of trying to figure out who the running back 1 is, so you can start Dunbar or Cameron Artis-Payne. All right, looking at the wide receivers, this is pretty much the same story. You have to take last week with a huge grain of salt. I think you can still start Jeff Badet and Jazz Ferguson this week. Last week we had them ranked really high. Obviously, they didn't do much because Philip Nelson couldn't throw the ball more than like 2 feet in front of his face. But I think this week will be a completely different story. Jeff Badet looked explosive throughout training camp, and I think will end up being their number 1 target here. And Jazz Ferguson is definitely going to be a red zone threat. So pretty excited to see what both of those guys do. And then Flynn Nagel is also a decent option playing in the slot. Should continue to see a decent amount of targets here. There's too many other guys on this roster other than those big 3 that I would even consider. One of them might do well, but good luck guessing which one. All right, looking at the tight ends, Donald Parham looked to be the lone bright spot as a pass catcher last week. Sean Price also looked decent, but he didn't get nearly as many targets. So considering how many other receivers there are that are probably going to produce from a fantasy perspective, I wouldn't recommend starting Sean Price, but I think if you had Donald Parham, he showed us enough last week to get us excited to start him this week. All right, and then looking at the defense, I guess no point in foreshadowing it anymore. What we heard today was it's looking like even though Josh Johnson has been a limited participant in practice all week, it's looking like they're still unlikely to go with him as their starter this week as he still continues to deal with that thigh injury, which really sucks. I was really hoping for this to be one of the higher scoring games on the week, but if they end up playing against Jalen McClendon, that's really going to depress what the Wildcats can do. But on the flip side, that means that the Dallas Renegades defense is basically a must-start in DFS and in your season-long leagues. Dallas had one of the highest-rated defenses preseason, and although they lost last week, they did still hold St. Louis to 15 points in total, multiple sacks, a forced fumble. Look for them to do even better this week. Unless Josh Johnson can play, this will be the clear number one defense for me. All right. I already gave away the secret, but looking over at the Wildcats, as mentioned, Josh Johnson has been limited all week, but the report today is that he's still expected to miss another week. I really hope that changes, and if it does, we'll let you guys know as soon as we find out. But right now, we got a plan as if Josh Johnson is not going to play in week 2. And I really think that sucks because Chad Kanoff is also dealing with a shoulder and a head injury. He is not participating in practice, so I would say at this point it's very unlikely that either that Kanoff will play at all, and since they're saying that Josh Johnson won't start, that would mean that Jalen McClendon is the only other healthy quarterback on this team. He looked good in the preseason, but last week when he touched the ball in the couple drives that he started, he did basically nothing. So that's definitely going to be a big bummer for this offense, but we'll see what he can do. Hopefully Josh Johnson can play. Like I said, we'll keep you guys updated. Now, looking over at the running backs, obviously, if Jalen McClendon plays, you have to keep that in mind. It's going to bring the ceiling down for everybody a bit because the overall scoring potential there will be lower. But Elijah Hood looked really good last week, even though he had just a little more than 30 yards. Dallas got run all over the place last week against St. Louis, and Elijah Hood should get plenty of volume this week to warrant a start, especially even if McClendon plays. I think Elijah Hood might even see his volume go up. Juwan Harris might miss the game, but Martez Carter looks like he might end up being involved this week. And I still really like Larry Rose, but I'm not going to be starting anyone outside of Hood until we see more of the split go to either Rose or Carter. All right, looking at the wide receivers, now Nelson Spruce was the most dominant wide receiver in the entire XFL last week, and he did that with a backup quarterback, so you still can't bench Spruce even if McClendon plays. But it definitely throws everyone else into disarray. Jordan Smallwood looked pretty good last week with Chad Kanoff, but if it's Jalen McClendon and not Josh Johnson, I'm probably not even going to play him. Looks like Sidney Blacknell is also on the injury report. He didn't practice today with a thigh injury, so he might miss this game. Trey McBride didn't even get a touch last week. I'd expect him to be a little more involved this week, especially if Blacknell can't play, but overall, I'm not really going to start anyone outside of Spruce if McClendon is the quarterback there. All right, looking at the tight ends, now Brandon Barnes didn't have much production last week, but he looked great when he got a chance. His upside is definitely capped with McClendon, as is everybody else, but he could end up being the main safety valve outside of Spruce, so he's a tight end that gets targets. That's something that's worth noticing. I would still start him this week. On the defense, I have the Wildcats ranked as the bottom defense. As we kind of already alluded to, I think the Dallas Renegades are going to have a much better time on offense this week, and I would not want to be playing the defense that A, just fired their defense coordinator, B, just lost their defensive captain, and is now playing against the highest rated preseason offense going into, before last week with their starting quarterback back. So try to find another option if you can avoid playing the Wildcats. You'll be thanking me later. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I do truly appreciate it. If you guys are looking for fantasy content, weekly rankings, you can see my trade tiers, my trade values. If you're playing a season-long league, you're trying to trade with people, waiver report, everything that you need to be able to access and play well throughout the entire XFL season. You can get that for free. Click that link in the description or go to fantasyaddictionnetwork.com. And if you like what you saw here, we're posting stuff every single day, keeping you informed on everything that's happening in the XFL. We post NFL videos here soon too as the free agency rolls around. So hit that like and subscribe button for everything fantasy football related. And thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.